Okay, students. So now we are going to do this activity to observe how diaphragm supports the respiration process. That is the inhaling and exhaling processes. So to do that and to demonstrate that, I have the bell jar here. I have connected a tube. This is the respiratory tract through which air flows into the lungs. So here you can see inside there is a white tube. The main tube is like the trachea and the branches are like the bronchi. And here we have the two balloons which are similar to the lungs. So you all know when inhaling takes place, the diaphragm has to contract. The curvature of the diaphragm increases, then the pressure inside the chest cavity increases, so the air will flow out of the lungs. At that point, you can see the balloons that the lungs are contracting. When you inhale, the curvature of the diaphragm decreases, the chest cavity also the size increases, therefore the pressure decreases inside the chest cavity and air flows in. So that is what we are going to observe now. So if I lift this, the glass jar, this membrane is the diaphragm. So when I pull it, now you can see the balloons are relaxed. They are like contracted. But when I pull the diaphragm down, here you can see the balloons inflate. That is the lungs inflate when air flows in. Again you can see the lungs contracting. Again the lungs inflating and the lungs contracting. So this is how the respiration process, inhaling process works. Now the lungs have inflated. Again you can observe them contracting. So this is how inhaling and exhaling takes place within our body. Okay, students. So you all know what blood is. It is a connective tissue and there are corpuscles and plasma in blood. So if we take a smear or a sample of blood, it looks like a homogeneous mixture. But if you observe it under the light microscope, you can see that there are different types of corpuscles present in it. So to do that, I will use a glass slide. I will put a drop of blood onto the glass slide and then make a smear of it and use it to observe through the light microscope. You can easily identify the shape of the red blood cells. You all know it's a biconcave disc-like cells. So if you see from the top, it looks like a circular cell. If you can observe the sideways, if it's visible, you will see it as a biconcave disc. Okay, so to do that, I have to take a drop of blood. So I have clean slides here. I'm going to take a small drop of blood and put it onto the glass slide. So with the other slide, I can make it into a smear. Just spread it around so that you will be able to observe it clearly. And then we can observe without the cover slip because it's in the form of a smear. So first I'll observe through the low power. Then you will be able to see most of the cells or the corpuscles, they are together. It's not very easy to identify them separately. So if I change it to a higher power, then I do the fine adjustment, you will be able to see more clearly the different types of corpuscles present in blood smear. Can you all see it? Yes. So, there are different types of corpuscles present in a blood smear. So, that is what we were able to observe now. Okay, students. So, now we are going to observe that blood flows through capillary tubes. To do that activity, we can either use a small fish or a tadpole. So, I have already prepared a slide with a live tadpole here, and I have covered the tadpole with wet cotton wool. If it's a fish, you have to cover the gills with wet cotton wool so that still they are alive. And here I am only doing it by myself, then it won't take a long time. But if in school we are going to do it, there are many students, so we'll need to change the tadpole or the fish after about 10 minutes time. We have to put that into water and get another tadpole so that we keep them alive. So here what we are going to do is, after it's covered with wet cotton wool, only the tail part is exposed. So through that you can observe the blood circulation through capillary tubes. I will place the slide here and I'll make sure that the part of the tail is in a line with the lens. I have adjusted it. Now if we observe it through the low power itself, we can see the movement of blood through capillaries. Can you all see, students, how the blood is flowing through the very thin capillaries and how fast the movement is taking place? So that is because the blood is flowing through capillaries. You can see it as a fast movement of particles. You can observe it clearly. So there, students, you were able to see how blood flows through capillary tubes in an organism. Okay, students. So here I have a video. You can see this is the heart and these are the blue color ones are the veins and the red color blood vessels are the arteries. So here you can see, students, the heart and the blood vessels associated to it. Now we will see this is how the heart beats, and the muscles of the heart are involved in the beating of the heart and pumping of the blood. And you know, now the red color blood vessels are the arteries and the blue color ones are the veins. You can observe that, and the smaller blood vessels are the capillaries, hair-like blood vessels. Now you can see how the blood flows. Arteries take blood away from the heart and veins bring the blood back to the heart. And you can observe there is like a network of blood vessels throughout the body. And this is the structure of the heart that you need to understand more clearly. You can see the 4 chambers, the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. Here you can see the valves. The bicuspid valve on this side and the tricuspid valve on this side. Here you can see the semilunar valves. This is the aortic semilunar valve and here there is the pulmonary semilunar valves. And when blood is pumped, you can observe how the valves open and close as well. So that is what you need to understand related to the structure of the heart, right ventricle and the left ventricle, as well as the valves present there. The tricuspid valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle. There you can see the pulmonic valve and here you can see the aortic valve. So now you can see how the valves function when there is the blood flow, pumping of blood by the heart. So this is how blood is pumped by the heart into the blood vessels and how blood flows into the heart as well. Here blood flows, it's pumped into the pulmonary artery. From the pulmonary vein, it comes back to the left atrium and from the left atrium into the left ventricle as well. So, with that, we will try to understand how the blood circulatory system functions. Okay, students. So, you know the structure of the heart. Blood flows from the atrium into the ventricles simultaneously. From the ventricles again simultaneously it gets pumped into the pulmonary artery as well as the aorta. So, this is how blood is going to flow. You can see the valves opening and closing. When blood goes into the pulmonary artery, here the blood is pumped into the aorta. So, then it will be circulated throughout the body. Here you can see blood is coming into the heart through the pulmonary vein. So, this is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood into the left atrium, from the left atrium through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle it will be supplied to the aorta. You can see the aortic valve there that will open and the blood will be pumped into the aorta. Then of course you can see how blood will flow through the arteries, the arterioles, then the arterioles will form the capillaries. Here you can see a capillary network in the organ. From the arteries it becomes the veins thereafter. In between it's the veins. Now the veins bring the blood back to the heart. Here you can see the vena cava, superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava bringing the blood back to the vein. So, here is the structure of the heart again. This is how blood flows into the right atrium, from the right atrium through the tricuspid valve into the left atrium. So, that is one complete circulation of blood throughout the body. So, with that, I am sure students you would have understood how blood is circulated throughout the body. Now, in both these processes, earlier we discussed the structure of the heart, then I explained the different arteries and veins related. Now, we all saw how blood is pumped and how blood comes back. You can remember earlier blood was pumped from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, went to the lungs, got oxygenated, came back to the left atrium, then from the left ventricle it was pumped out of the heart again. And then again from the organs it came back to the right atrium. So, in that full circulation, the blood passed through the heart 2 times. So, therefore, we call it a double circulation. Now, we will try to understand this double circulation in more detail.